Right, ready to start? Yeah, good. All right, cool. Thank you for joining us at this Dev Meetup. My name is Minesh. I'm Solutions Architect at Vercel. Been at the company for around 18-ish years, not that long. And ever since then, I've been working with Episerver and Optimizely. So yeah, I'm well invested in the Optimizely platform. Right, so what are we going to be talking about today? That is, first of all, I'm going to be introducing Optimizely Beta. I got a bit lazy. I used this slide about 2 years ago. Beta's been around for ages, but it is a cool thing to have. Optimizely open up the beta access to all partners and customers and our MVPs, etc. It gives people early access to all of the Optimizely products, as well as helps Optimizely get feedback on where they are going in the direction and roadmap. So definitely go and check out the Optimizely Beta, and one of the products that we're going to be talking about today is actually part of the Optimizely Beta. What's that, sorry? Edgelogs 2. Oh, Edgelogs 2, yes, which Jacob is going to be talking about as well. Thank you, Jacob. Right, so moving swiftly on. We have one of the products called Front-End Hosting for Content Management System. As you guys know, about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years, Optimizely announced the SaaS version of their CMS product. Now, what is the SaaS version of their CMS product? As it says on the tin, it's the software as a service for the CMS, where Optimizely manage the infrastructure. They manage the actual packages. You don't even have to manage any of the deployments. Optimizely look after all of that for you. But it's a headless system. Now, where do you actually host the head? Good question. So, what we have at the moment, hosting options, we've got some serverless platforms. You may know the big boys like Netlify and Vercel. Fantastic to host the head. They are fast, simple deployments, so a perfect engineering experience. There's no server management required with these platforms. Netlify and Vercel look after everything from where you're hosting it, to the CDN, to the WAF, even the deployments, I would say. They have serverless functions, so if your front end is doing any back end logic, you can just send them off to the serverless functions and edge functions as well. Like I said, they've got a global CDN, Auto SSL, support for all modern frameworks, front-end frameworks that is, Next.js, Astro, etc. And they've got easy preview infrastructures as well. So it's not like you're just deploying your code to a box. If you're working on feature-based development, you can just deploy a feature and get a nice friendly URL to that. So that is the serverless platforms like Netlify and Vercel. You could also host your own using something like Coolify, where basically you stand up your own server or system, and it's an open source platform. You host the Coolify package, and you get very similar to Netlify and Vercel, but there's more engineering effort there. There's a lot more configuration you have to do. But generally, it does a lot of what these Netlify and Vercel platforms do. So that's one option. It makes it quite difficult when you sometimes have to go to a third-party vendor or you have to host your own. Firstly, if you have to go to a third party, that's additional contractual negotiations you have to do. And of course, there's a commercial licensing aspect to it as well. Some of these providers, Netlify, Vercel included, they're not the cheapest. Sometimes the licensing fees as much as what you pay Optimizely. I'm not saying Optimizely is hugely expensive, but imagine they're paying for Optimizely, then again, they're paying for this front-end hosting as well. It doubles up, not all clients like that. So what Optimizely Hosting has come in, it's kind of filled that gap where they've got the SaaS platform for the headless CMS, and for the front end, they are also offering Optimizely Front-End Hosting. So again, it's a cloud-based hosting. It uses the Azure infrastructure to where your code is actually kept, so safe and secure. They also give you a WAF and a CDN as well, so that's Cloudflare. The infrastructure is Azure. So yeah, for the WAF and CDN, it's Cloudflare. You've got all the image resizing at the edge and all of that nice functionality that you would expect. They've got that all through that Cloudflare system. Environments match SaaS or PaaS. So you're doing a headless solution, you can use both SaaS and PaaS for the Optimizely front-end hosting. So imagine you've got a PaaS CMS where you've got integration, pre-production, and production. You would have the same from a front-end perspective. And to deploy it, you would use the deployment API. And somewhat, that is actually quite good, because if you guys are hosting the CMS in a traditional manner, I'm not going to say monolithic, sorry, I said monolithic. If you're hosting it in a traditional manner, you have them and you would deploy that using the deployment API to the DXP, the same way you would do the front end, decoupled front end to it. Now, before I actually show you how it all works, there are some gotchas as well, and there's some room for growth with this front-end hosting with Optimizely. Currently, it only supports Next.js. I know people are looking at other front-end frameworks, as Jacob has looked at Astro and is very fond of it. At the moment, it only supports Next.js, but there's definitely other platforms in the roadmap. Somewhat limited configurations. What I mean by that is you do have to actually reach out to Optimizely. Let's say you want to add a domain name. If you want to manage any of your caching stuff, you have to reach out to Optimizely using support.optimizely.com. Whereas if you were to, with the cloud providers, it kind of is all self-managed. Here, there's a little bit intervention you have to do. Again, it's not as feature-rich. So when I mentioned like you've got deployment previews with Netlify, Vercel, even Coolify, you don't actually have that with Optimizely. It is literally just integration, pre-production, and production, or test 1, test 2, and production. And at the moment, it only supports static deployment. So where Next.js would build it statically, you will only see static front ends. There is incremental static regeneration in the works, which means that if you publish some content in your CMS, it will go to the hosting provider, say, look, I've got new content, please build me a new version of that page, and it will go and do that automatically. That's in the roadmap. Again, it's not too far away, maybe a couple of months. So how does it all work? Let's go and see. So to be honest, I wasn't actually going to have slides today. My whole talk was going to be off this notepad file. And that's how we're going to deploy it. So first of all, I'm going to show you what the PaaS system looks like and what the front end, ooh, what's going on there? It didn't want you to see my notepad. When did it switch off? As I switched. Yeah, but if I do that, will it, yay! That's good, that's good. Right, so let's go straight into what it looks like, the front end hosting. So, if you're familiar with the PaaS portal, this is kind of it at the moment. Sorry, it's not any flashier. So what you first have, in terms of from a deployment perspective, you've got the environments, integration, pre-production, and production. I've actually not deployed to pre-production or production. I'm going to try one of these out fresh today. Hope it works. Fingers crossed. You've got your logs. So if I go to one that I did do an integration, you will see. So if I go to the succeeded one, you will see that it's very familiar territory here. You can see that it's doing the build. I'm just chucked a Next.js deployment at it. And you can see it's done the build and it's deployed it out. Yes, okay, it's not that fancy, but yeah, it does the Next.js deployment. Nice and easy. Now, if I go back to here, what you have is the hostname configuration. So you guys are familiar with the DXP. If you want Optimizely to connect up your hostname to Optimizely, you just send them a support request with your project name, organization, etc., and they'll put in your custom hostnames here and tie them up to one of your environments. You've got the troubleshooting. So if you do nice logs, you can actually see all of your application logs to each of the environments. You can clear your CDN cache, restart any of the environments if you wanted to, as well as get your outbound IPs as well. Who's that? No, I can't sell you Optimizely today, sorry. And API. So this is the most important part. So again, if you're familiar with the deployment API, you use these keys to actually deploy out to one of the infrastructures. And then you've got your app settings. This is where you hold your environment variables. So imagine you've got your SaaS-based CMS. That front end needs to talk to GraphQL or one of your APIs or something. And this is where you would set up your environment variables. So let's just say it was a graph connection string. You would just add it in here, and the front end would actually go and talk to it. So what we're going to do now is try and do a deployment. So first of all, I go to the API, I add my API credentials. And let's call this Dev Meetup Prep. And we choose pre-production. Do we do the edge logs or leave that to you? Jacob will show this in a bit. And click on save. What that will do is generate me a bunch of API keys. So make sure you write these down in a secure manner. Once they go, they go. You have to recreate them. So I'll come back to this. I'm not going to refresh this page because it will go wrong. I'll come back to these. Now what I want to do is via PowerShell connect to the deployment API. So what we do is go and open up PowerShell. Again, you can automate all of this. I'm just showing it in PowerShell just so I can show you the sequencing. So with DevOps, you can make a YAML script and automate this whole process if you want in a CI/CD process. So let's go to YAML. Not YAML, let's go to PowerShell. And let's look at the first line. So I want to connect. What I have to connect with, first of all, you've got your client key, client secret, and project ID. So let's grab this. Make that, and we've got a client key that I can put in over here, which is over here. I'm doing it over here, then I can paste it into my PowerShell. Makes it easier. And client secret, you guys can copy this if you want. Honestly, go nuts if you need to. I will be deleting them after this talk. And client secret, and then finally the project ID, which is over here. And let's go and copy this. Woohoo! Okay, cool. And that's not my, yes it is. Why is it not? Sorry. I normally use a keyboard and mouse, makes life so much easier. There we go. I hit return. And now I have actually connected into the platform to actually start my deployment up. The next step would be actually getting a SaaS URL. So when I've got a package, I have to deploy it to a storage account in Azure and then actually start the deployment. To actually get the URL of where I can upload that package to, I can do this, get epi deployment package location. I'm missing a few steps, I know, but I've just looked at my time. So that will generate me a SaaS-based URL, but I want to put that into a variable. So SaaS URL, so that is me putting into a variable. And back and forth. There we go. And I can now package up my Next.js directory and upload it. So when we say package it up, I definitely recommend automating this, but just to show you what it might look like, this is my Next.js sort of route. You've got my sources file, and you've got basically a Next.js option here. So we're going to package it up. I'm going to delete the node modules because I don't want to send that up as well. As part of the build process, it automatically manages it. So let's delete the node modules and let's zip it up. Okay, I am running this. Let's not run this. Try that again. Okay, while that's deleting, so the package has to be in a very specific name. So you can call the project whatever you want, but it has to have .head.app and then the version number behind it. So let's just zip it up into this file name. And go over here, Control A, and compress to zip file. So it's going to make that for me quickly. And let's give it a name. So my front end head app, let's give it today's date, which is July the 10th. Okay, cool. So now I've got that. We can go and upload that to that directory to start the deployment. So to do that, we add epi deployment package to that SaaS URL and give it the path that we are in. So what path is my PowerShell in? Because it might be quicker copying into there. I'm just in my head directory, so Control X there, and just put it in. Okay, cool. So let's go and upload that. So add the package, Control C there, and we're just gonna change the date over here from the 1st to the 10th. Ooh.
Your zip file might be called .zip.zip, which is not showing file extension.
I knew that. I was just testing. Just testing. .zip might not work actually, so let's just go and rename that. You're right, actually. You can see the one below that was my test. Thank you. And let's try it one more time. So that's gone and uploaded it. And beautiful. And let's go and start that deployment now. So the next bit is literally just start epi deployment. You give it your file name, you give it your target. I'm going to do direct deploy to be quick. This might not work because actually I don't know if you can do direct deploy to pre-production. I know before you could only do it to integration, but let's give it a go. So, yep. Let's just go and change this to the 10th. Start epi deployment, there. Target deployment to pre-production. If this doesn't work, then we can change it and hit return. Right, I'm aware of the time. API call failed, the remote server returned 400. Okay, it's not able to do it. What's that? Direct deploy might not work. Okay, let me just remove that key because it is pre-production. Like I said, direct deploy may only work to integration. Let's give that a go. Yep, it's doing it. But you can imagine what it does next. It does that Next.js build and deploys this whole package. Normally when Vercel succeeds with a deployment, it does confetti. I'm going to have confetti as well. Pretend it worked. So yeah, what this gives you is I've just uploaded a standard Next.js boilerplate up onto these environments. So you can see that if I go back to my pass portal and look at the host names, let's copy this. I know it's production, but we can do this over here, change production to, my testbed was integration, so let's just do inti. And you can see that it deployed that front end quite easily. It does all the static building, but if we look at the logs as well, and while my build is going on, we can go to deployments, and you can see it's deploying to pre-production. And what's the log saying? It's only 1% complete. Do you guys want to really wait for 100%? You get the idea. It works. It's quite easy. And you can host your front end head with Optimizely now. That's it. Any questions? Yay.
So you were saying that ISR is to be coming soon.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have an SSR strategy, is that supported? Or?
So dynamic server-side rendering is currently, yes, it should be supported. I'm not 100% sure because I've only done static builds and static deployments, but I'm guessing that dynamic should just work. It depends on what the infrastructure is in Azure that they're using behind the scenes. If it's a web static app, then it won't work, but if it's a normal Azure web app, it will work.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? I know Justin had a few. Well, that's me. I am Minesh. If you guys want to connect, reach out, mineshshah@netsol.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have got a YouTube channel as well, but that's where I upload. No, that's where I upload my Optimizely stuff as well. But yeah, you just search for Minesh, you should see me. That's it. Thank you.